What did you believe? How? What did you think would happen after you died as an atheist? My life review wasn't pleasant. It wasn't a good moment. It was brutal. I was in agony. After that, I thought it was the second coming of Christ, obviously. So I went to Walgreens after my experience and stole a Bible because I wanted to learn about God. And yes, I was a thief. Girl, you're crazy. Yeah, I was totally out of control. I'm laying hands on homeless drug addicts. No, yeah, I'm all in. I'm evangelizing. I'm telling people about the God I have. So you came to the other side, all the way to the other side. I like to welcome the show. Betty Guadagno, how are you? Very grateful to be here. Thank you so much for coming down to Next Level Soul Studios. I appreciate it. Yes, it's beautiful here. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We try to make it cozy. It's very nice. There's a pleasant, cool vibe here. Those lovely souls are always with us. So, let's talk about your near-death experience, but your story is beautiful. It's interesting because you were a hardcore atheist. That hardcore atheist, were you raised in the Jewish faith? No, my mom was Jewish, my dad was Catholic, but they were both agnostic atheists. Got it. So they didn't even go to Easter to church or the temple, right? Nothing like that, right? So you don't have much spiritual education, zero spiritual awareness, no spirit. So when you were growing up, nothing. I never heard the term spiritual awakening. Never heard of a near-death experience, never heard of a chakra. Nothing like that. But you had heard of Jesus, obviously. Of course, and you heard about, stories in the Bible and things, but it was like, yeah, whatever. So you were a hardcore atheist. So what I always like to ask atheists, what did you believe? Like, what did you think was going to happen after you died as an atheist? Yeah, I thought you just turned into dirt, and that was it. And that was the end of it. It was just easier for me not to believe in anything because I had such a traumatic childhood, and I had so many terrible things happen to me. If I believed in God, then I would have to believe that God was doing these things to me. So I hid from God instead because it seemed easier. It was a coping mechanism. Definitely it was a coping mechanism. This is an introduction because I always love hearing the perspectives of atheists like, okay, so what do you think? And it's just so fascinating. So, let's break down what happened. Before we get into your next near-death experience, what was your life like before it? Yes, my life before my experience was traumatic. That's a good way to sum it up. I grew up in a family affected by addiction, poverty, and sexual trauma, and everything that comes with living a life like that. I just thought everything was really normal. I didn't realize that any of those things were unusual. I thought it was normal to steal groceries. I thought it was normal to get eviction notices on your door and move once or twice a year. I thought it was normal to have a long extension cord running from your apartment to the building just to have lights on in your home. I thought all of this was completely normal because that's what I saw around me. I didn't realize my life was abnormal until much later, but I knew that my parents were struggling. But every time they smoked something, had a drink, or took a pill, everything just shut off. It was like nothing else mattered. And so I made all these mental notes as a little girl that as soon as I could get my hands on whatever it was, that's what I would do. Oh, wow. So it was this programming, that first programming phase of 7 years, where you don't even have to be taught. It's not like they sat down and said, this is how you make meth, in that sense. But just by being in the environment, you subconsciously absorb absolutely all of those things by watching the behaviors. It's like all I know, things are changing, and I want that change. It's interesting, like when I always tell people, when they come, they don't believe in the subconscious conditioning of those first 7 years. I say, have you ever met a rich person who is the dumbest and most clueless individual you've ever known, yet they're rich for some reason? And they'll say yes, because they were born into that kind of family and subconsciously learned how to handle money simply because it was always around them. So what you know, as an actress, if you were born into a family of actors, that just feels normal. You start absorbing all these things. Those first 7 years have a huge impact. I always say, those first 7 years are when you learn, and then for the rest of your life you figure out how to unlearn exactly. So during this time, How old were you when you had your near-death experience? I was 35. So you had already lived a significant part of your life by then? Oh yes, quite a bit. And during that period, what was going on? I mean, obviously you began to head down the path of addiction. How did you handle that psychologically? Did spirituality even come into the picture then? No, the lights were out, definitely not completely out. You know my parents. I watched addiction take over them and completely destroy them. And in 2007 it was the peak of the OxyContin epidemic, and my parents were prescribed over 1,000 pills every month, and somehow they always ran out. They were facing another eviction. The electricity was cut off, the gas was shut off, and they made the decision that they had to end their suffering. They needed to stop using, and the only way they knew how to do that was to do what everyone else in our family did: die. So in 2007, my parents held hands intentionally. They ended their lives together. Yes, it was absolutely the worst. I mean, you can't even imagine. I was 23 when this happened, and my sister was 18. We found them and they left little notes on the fridge magnets on a notepad that just said, "Take care of each other," as if a 23-year-old and an 18-year-old would really know how to do that. Well, I just went numb. I'm so sorry. And the thing is, my addiction started after my parents died, and that addiction became my father. It didn't just replace my father, it became my guiding star. It became my higher power. I didn't have room for God in my life because it was my God, yes, and it actually just threw me into a loop. It made me abandon everything in my life. I left my sister. I moved across the country. I said I couldn't handle it. I decided I would become the aggressor in other people's stories. I would no longer be a victim. I ended up being a victim in my life, and I didn't even know there were other roles to play. I thought it was just perpetrator and victim, and then I decided to be the aggressor, and I hurt people. I mean, intentionally, maliciously, I traumatized others because I wanted them to suffer as deeply and as badly as I did. Hurt people. Hurt people, absolutely, and heal people. Heal people, very much on the other side. There's balance in everything in this universe. There's balance in everything. So as you're going through this, before we get to your near-death experience, let's dive in. Let's do a little fiction pulp and jump into the narrative a bit. So, I'm going to be all over the place. Before your near-death experience, let's jump after what you're awakening to. Why do you believe you chose this life, this blueprint, these parents? Because so many people are watching and listening. You know, when I say, "You chose this," I do that with my kids all the time. When they start fighting, I say, "Well, you chose your sister." I'm like, "No, I did." One of my kids says, she always says like, "It's just a wheel. It's a wheel of chance." I'm like, "So, is there a giant cosmic wheel? Well, if there is, who's pulling it?" And she goes, "Oh, we hear dead people talking, showing love to the kids." But so many people are listening, aren't they? It really triggers them when you say, "You chose this life," because they're just looking at it from a human perspective, not from a soul perspective. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah, I don't know. If anyone had told me that I chose my life, I would have punched them in the face. It would have been like lights out. It would have been really bad. But for me today, I know I chose the path of life that I'm on because heaven is really dull, and my soul is this Spanish novella scriptwriter, and she was like, "Let's do all of this. We have a chance." I mean, every possible story that could happen in a person's life has happened in mine. Your evil twin came back from the dead, telling you, yes. So why did you think that way? Why did you think you did that? Why did you believe you went down this path? It's not an easy road. What did you learn? And you only gave me a bit of a Cliff Notes version, bits of what you didn't go into detail about. I can only imagine how difficult this path is. The road of addiction is horrendous, but it seems like that was just one of many, many ingredients in the recipe you put together. Yes, and the scriptwriter of the Spanish soap opera you got on the other side. So you know the life lesson of addiction is brutal, but it also comes with the dual experience of recovery. Some souls never get the chance to experience both parts of the lesson, like my parents, for instance. So what I do is heal not just for myself, but for them too, and for the generations upon generations in my family line specifically, family lines of people I've never met, never encountered, as I take on this intense healing. This is not just for me, It's for the whole collective. And having this idea keeps me going, because if I thought it was just for me, maybe I would give up and say it's too much. So, you're saying it's really interesting. You're now talking about ancestral drama that's in our lineages, and that we carry these things with us. Therefore, there can be generations of abuse, generations of addiction, and it takes one soul to break the cycle. And when they do, it ripples out, even from a small point of view like what you're talking about. I heard this once. A person becomes enlightened, and they just erase the karma. For how many generations forward and backward did I hear that? That's something I heard from the Vedic texts. So, you're doing something similar, and even if it's not as grand as when Jesus did it or something like that, it still stops there. And the next generation can come in without having to deal with it. Very Bruce Lee the Dragon, more or less. You know what? These are those stories, right? So, this is the story I tell myself because it makes my human experience joyful. So if someone thinks about another kind of correct narrative, they can have that narrative too. That's what makes me feel like I have a purpose here, and that's why I stay focused on spiritual awareness, spiritual principles, recovery, and keeping an open mind. It's like, I want to be the ancestor that people in my family pray to one day and say, "Oh, I need help from Aunt Betty." You think you're the one because of something you've said, stories, and ever since then, I've been a storyteller for most of my life. The one thing I keep hearing and seeing repeatedly is that we're all just trying to figure this out. We're kind of dropped on this planet. Essentially, we come out in a very cold and difficult way, generally speaking, unless you have a home birth and warm water. But usually you come out shocked hot, and you're just trying to figure this out for the rest of your life. You're trying to understand this reality, and the stories we tell ourselves are our coping mechanisms. Religion is one of them, the way we perceive life. You looked at life like, oh, addiction, or those things my parents did. Oh, that's going to solve my problem. That was a story that was told to you, even if indirectly, but it was a story that started echoing in your head and became a destructive narrative until you changed it. But we're all just trying to figure things out, and stories are the only thing that keeps us together without losing our minds, because it's not easy down here. And that's why, across every pantheon, in every mythological family, it's the same narrative that weaves through all of them. The journey of this hero, of course, that's what it's about. Everyone has the chance to embark on their own hero's journey. If I can do it, anyone can. Okay, no, I'm not special. This is available to everyone. Taking a situation and using your pain for a purpose, transforming it into power. That's what I have. What's the one thing that drives me to this experience? Yes, it is, and I found it so beautiful. You said that. Just know, the story I tell myself is that I'm doing this for my generations, forward and backward, and that's what keeps me going. Because if it were just for me, I don't think I would have made it through. Why do you think that? Why do you think you need a grand story instead of I just need to heal myself? I'm just curious. Yes, I think it's because it gives me purpose. Think about something bigger than yourself. I believe most people will help others before they help themselves, right? The analogy of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, they have to say that because people don't usually do it intentionally. That's not our natural pattern. It's meant to help us. It's meant to help others. So it's one of the things that keeps me motivated to carry on. Because when I started this journey, I didn't like myself. Why would I want to heal myself? I didn't know who I was, and the person I was really a terrible person, and I didn't want to be close to her. So I had to figure out who I am in spiritual consciousness, who this new version of me is that came from my spiritual experience, and learn to love her. And it was a process. It's a process, really. We all go through this. I'm still doing it. We're still trying to figure out how to love ourselves. Isn't it true that the greatest power we could have is to truly love ourselves? I want to love myself the way God loves me. That's my goal every day. It's so beautiful. It's a phrase on a t-shirt. It's a beautiful saying. You're absolutely right. Yes, I want to love myself like God loves me. Oh God, because most of us are the worst to ourselves. Yes, we are. I always tell people if you had a friend who talked to you the way you talk to yourself, you'd punch them in the face. You would run away from them. Yes, that's brutal. When I went to recovery, I did this exercise where I wrote a letter to myself as if I were writing to a friend. And the contrast between those letters was incredible. I mean, the letter to myself was full of curse words. It was just like, oh man, scribbling all over the page, and the letter as a friend was, "You're doing great. I'm so proud of you." They were two very different voices. And I thought to myself, this is my ego, my self-centered thought system, treating myself like a friend. This is my spirit-centered thought system. This is beautiful, this is beautiful. So, okay, let's go. Go to the day you died. What happened that day? That day I took a lot of substances. Who would have thought a drug addict took a lot of medications? You were 35? I was 35. You know, before we continue, I remember being 35. It's not 25, right? And it's definitely not 15 either. Yeah, you experience things on a different level. I can only imagine the toll your body has taken, especially since you kept pushing it. The body can only handle so much. Yeah, I was a hot mess. I have some before and after photos. You wouldn't believe it. It's amazing. But I never gave myself a chance to really feel anything. Every day was medicated, all day long, every day. There wasn't a moment of reality, except maybe if I passed out, and that was it. Then I'd jump right back into it the second my eyes opened. That's how addiction was for me. It became my entire identity. I'm covered in tattoos of liquor bottles and cigarette packs. Okay, that was all my personality. Wow. It was all about partying, quoting, chasing highs. Being an addict was my whole life. How did you reach that near-death experience? Because I'm genuinely fascinated, and I really hope this helps people watching. How did you even function? Like, how did you hold down a job? I was a prostitute. At first it was fun, then it was fun with problems, and then it was just problems. That's the progression of addiction. So in the beginning I had jobs, an apartment, husbands. I had pets, clothes, friends. Then slowly but surely all of that disappeared. I became unemployable and had to start doing desperate things to make money to feed my addiction, because that was the most important thing in my life. That's how it was. Yeah, all right. So, until the day I died, okay? The day I died was March 23rd, 2019, which actually marks the start of Aries season, a symbol of rebirth. It was spring equinox, and this was an epic rebirth. I took a lot of stuff because I was about to do my laundry and thought, I better be realistic about this, because doing laundry is hard, you know? And I ended up overdosing, and had this incredibly intense, contrasting experience during that overdose. The first part was a life review, and like I said, I was a traumatized person who was intentionally traumatizing others. I was waiting for that. Yes, my life review wasn't pleasant. It was a difficult moment. It was brutal. I was in agony. I began to feel the pain I had caused others from their point of view. It was emotional pain I was feeling, not just the physical things I had done to people like lying, cheating, stealing, as if I had stolen on impulse. You know, all those physical acts. The emotional pain and turmoil felt like something had been torn from my soul. And that's what I was experiencing. Then I started to undergo what felt like a collective life review. I was experiencing all the experiences that have ever happened on Earth, including things that didn't happen in this physical life. For me, I experienced childbirth, even though I've never had a child. I relived the death of my child again, even though I'm not someone who has had a child. My consciousness was entering all these other life experiences. Today, I have some awareness of those past lives I've had. It was kind of coming to me like that, but I was also seeing things from the perspectives of the people in my family. So when I had this experience of my child dying, I was in the consciousness of my aunt, whose son had died. And I was feeling her pain. I saw her face, felt her agony. Then I began to experience my parents' suicide from their perspective, as well as my own as their grieving daughter. But from their perspective, the pain, the ocean of anguish I was pushing away, felt as if every cell in my body was covered in thorns, static and concrete, and I was being destroyed. And at that moment I thought, okay, I must be dead because I'm seeing all these dead people and I'm dead and this is it and this is awful. Not what I expected. Then, before we continue, you too, when you survived an overdose, did you just go through a life review or was there a tunnel of light? Was there darkness? What was it? It was I fell in my bathroom and I just started feeling the feelings. It took me years to realize that it was a life review. I used to just say, I saw my parents, and that's how I knew I was dead, because I saw my deceased parents. But the range of emotions I was going through covered every feeling imaginable in human experience. It's fascinating. I hadn't heard of a life review that involved seeing other people's life experiences, not your own in another life or timeline, but through other people, whether they were part of your world or not. Both, actually, and to put it in today's terms, I was experiencing a spontaneous awakening of the Kundalini. Oh wow. For those unfamiliar, Kundalini roughly means the life force. So I was feeling this activation of life energy. I was experiencing all of life, not just my own. And honestly, it was the most intense thing. Always I had a unity experience. It felt like my soul was moving up and down the scale of consciousness. I experienced sadness, apathy, loss, anger, betrayal, then acceptance, willingness, and unconditional love. But it all happened rapidly, like being tossed around in a washing machine. Yeah, it was brutal. So you're watching the life review, but it's more of a feeling than a physical place, right? Because some people describe entering a room where a spiritual figure is there and says, "Here, let's look at your life review." You weren't that. But how I saw it was that everything I was building was coming from the vision of my mind, a space without physical form, but where my mind was creating environments within it. Got it. But were you dead? Or not dead yet? I'm not sure I actually died, because nobody ever officially declared me dead. All of this happened with me tied up on my bathroom floor. It's the kind of situation that can lead to an overdose. Well, you sort of did. You overdosed. I mean, part of me died, even if my physical body didn't. Right, exactly. So, you went through all of this. What happened after the life review, which sounds awful, though you mentioned there were positive moments? You were moving up and down emotionally. A lot of people get scared when they hear about the life review because they expect judgment. Did you feel judged, or did you just accept it for what it was? Yes, there was no condemnation. There is no such thing as judgment. I am the one judging myself. Yes, and that's the hardest part. What do you mean? I'm the worst judge. So it was just me judging myself, or maybe it was society's way of judging things, my conditioning, judging the experiences. But I was also feeling the emotions, so it wasn't really about judgment. It was about truth. That's how I made others feel. Yes, there's no sugarcoating that. Like exactly that. I hurt this person. That's how it feels, right? Unlike someone saying you really hurt Johnny's feelings, you actually felt what Johnny was feeling. Oh yes. And then it's okay. After going through that, the ups and downs, the roller coaster of a Kundalini awakening all at once. What happened next? So, while I was in that space of my parents' death, I gave up. That was it. That's what life is now. And then I started to hear my father's voice, and he was singing, "You are worthy of all the love in the universe. You are worthy of all the love in the universe." It was him, yes. And then he kind of transformed me into all the men I've had in my life. I started following those voices because I trusted them. I knew my father's voice. And as I followed that, that's when I traveled to the light and began to have a very different life review experience, which was very welcome. So, I wanted to pause you for a second. Your life review. I've never heard that before, and I've heard some of these. Did you have to go through that door, essentially? Like it's not just walking into the light and then seeing Betty or Jenny there and everyone else, and then having a life review? No, you had to kind of step in. We had to shake things up a lot before you entered the light. Do you believe that all near-death experiences are customized for the soul and where they are in their life? Yes, I think we all have our own editing team. I just hope they're not taking advice from soap opera writers. So, I don't think it's one size fits all. I mean, having interviewed so many people about their experiences, there's no single approach that fits everyone. But there are some common themes. Life review, tunnel of light. Those are definitely recurring themes. Yes, sometimes Jesus appears, sometimes Buddha appears, sometimes it's your father, sometimes it's your dog, right? That's okay. So you're heading toward the light. It's called the Matrix, right? Come on, Neo. It'll be here any moment. All right. So I'm heading toward the light. And then, everything felt a lot like a video game in my light experience. This could be because of the generation I was born into, or because we're living in a simulation. I mean, obviously, maybe it's a combination of both. So, I ended up in what looked like the deck of a spaceship, and there were thousands of other souls around me. I just don't have better words for this. It actually felt like the inside of a carnival gravitron ride. Do you remember? It looks like a spaceship spinning really fast. I came out the side of one of those walls, and then, in the center, there was this commander. He looked like an army commander, and there were 1,000 souls around me. You could call this commander Christ or Krishna or Buddha. There was a consciousness. There was a higher, loving, accepting, secure, guiding consciousness. And all those souls were buzzing, as if we were excited, and our commander was telling us that we are the most special volunteers and decided to come to Earth for the transformation of consciousness. And everyone was cheering, and everyone was so excited. And you know, I had no idea what was going on, but I knew I was part of it and felt the connection with all the other souls around me. My consciousness quickly shifts to another scene, and I find myself in front of a table of beings. It was really a cheap plastic table like at a banquet hall, nothing fancy, nothing beautiful. There were these beings behind the table, and I didn't ask who they were because I didn't need to. I just knew they were in charge. I didn't have to ask who they were. I don't know if they were in charge of everything or just me, but they had this big, giant book. They were looking through it, looking at me and the book, saying, "It's great to see you. You shouldn't stay. You're just here to gather information." And I, looking around, said, "You're not talking to me, are you? Because I don't know where I am, but being in this place is amazing, where I simply wasn't amazing this place. Yes, I want to stay here." And they continued to look at the book and said, "You are here for information." My consciousness shifts to another scene, and I find myself with a man. He was again like a video game character. So this is like an NPC, and he's guiding me. He's wearing a checkered blazer and a fedora. He has this big giant shopping cart, and he says, "Okay, let's choose your life." Then I start running through the grocery aisles in a supermarket sweep style, and lining the walls of the supermarket aisles were these huge, family-sized cereal boxes. Each cereal box held a life experience. Then my soul says, "Let's do this. We're going to Earth. Big awakening. Here we go, consciousness transformation." And I just start grabbing everything. Now my family line had already been decided because there were certain experiences I needed to have. But you're already in life. It's not like you're a fresh soul coming in. I'm seeing my planning before birth. So I'm seeing everything happening before I jump to Earth. That's everything that's going on. Okay, so you saw the pre-birth. Yes, the pre-birth experience. This is my pre-birth experience with the cereal boxes, which is a good omen because I ate a lot of cereal as a kid, obviously. So I start grabbing all these boxes of cereal. I'm picking things that a soul really shouldn't be taking on. All this cereal. No one can eat all this food in one life. Like addiction and poverty and, sexual trauma. I have the variety pack of that. Give me it all. The only experience I find really profound and love to share is that I chose this experience of childhood sexual trauma. I grabbed the cereal box, and when I pulled it out, a small orb of light came with the box. That orb of light was the soul of the man who molested me as a child, and we reached orb to orb one with the other and entered into a contract. I saw all the reasons why. One of the main reasons is that in a past life, I was his aggressor, and we were balancing our energies with each other. I also saw that we loved each other very much, and that's why we were going to play these roles for each other. He was going to be the villain for me in this life, my author. I also saw this because I was coming to Earth for the Great Awakening. This particular life experience wasn't just about me. It was about healing for every little girl and boy who haven't had the chance to heal from their childhood sexual traumas. So I took this on with the intention that, as I heal, everyone around me heals too. I sent that intention out into the universe. Because of this experience, this knowledge, I was able to step out of the victim mindset. It felt like a heavy shell had been lifted from me. 2 tons of emotional weight had been released from my spirit. I am not a victim. I am a divine creator. I created my experience alongside the divine. Then, I found myself back at the being's table. I was crying with gratitude. I was on my knees. It was so incredible. I am so thankful to have this information. Earth is still a mess, though. I am too. It's definitely not going backward, but I feel so much better now that I understand this great awakening. This show is going to be enlightening. I will be watching from up here. I'll grab my pajamas and a bowl of popcorn, and I'll relax with all of you. They were like, "No, girl, you're going back." And I transformed into a little child, stomping my hands and feet, figurative hands and feet, since there was no one there, throwing a tantrum. "I'm not going back. You can't make me go back. Don't make me go back." Then I screamed, "You don't tell us what Earth is really like." They said, "You say that every time you go home. Literally, every time you come back here." They said, "You're not going back as a punishment. You're going back because you've been training your whole life for this particular life. This is your mission, and we're not going to let you miss your opportunity. This is the most exciting time to be on Earth. Every soul here is here for the transformation of consciousness." And I said, "Well, I can't go back to her." I could see my body out there, myself just collapsed on the bathroom floor. I thought, look at her. She's a mess. She's struggling. She's broken. She needs a lot of healing. It would be impossible to go back. "I can't go back to her." They said, "Okay, you don't have to go back to her. I'm going to show you the baby you will be born as, because you will be going back. There's no other option." So I could see my shopping cart being pushed aside in the story of my life cart and all. Then, just like in a video game, a tiny avatar of a baby appeared. It circled, slowly spinning 360 degrees, and I saw all its stats displayed next to her. Her gender, ethnicity, birthplace, parents, the adversity she'd face. You know, her goal, parts of her mission. This baby's life would be even more challenging than mine. And I thought, I can't start from scratch. If these are truly my only choices, either go back to that broken, worn-out body I just left or start over, I'd just return to the body I came from. The beings of light were very loving, and they said, "Listen, the first part of your life was the training ground. Nobody likes boot camp. It's like a bald guy yelling in your face while you're doing 1,000 push-ups in the mud. It's awful. The second part of your life will fulfill your mission. You'll have a team, soulmates, kindred spirits, mentors, teachers, communities, and it will be so much better. You won't even be able to grasp it. Just trust us." And I was like, I don't trust you guys. Peace. Then I found myself back in my consciousness, back in my body, and I labeled the hold-off as drug-induced psychosis. I just sat there shaking my head. It was like, wow, I was so high. I thought I was talking to God. That was insane. And I went on with my life doing exactly what I always did. So all right, before we move further down that road, when you were up there with those spirit guys you don't trust and you were like, "Audi, I love your narrative. The skill with this is incredible. And someone from our generation kind of gets a lot of what you're saying, which is amazing. When you were in that room, the production value wasn't great up there. Apparently budget cuts on the other side affected things. They spent a lot on the storyline. They can't be like, let's roll this out. She's coming. Oh God. Do you see this? See how they're bringing in the plan? All good? We got this at Costco. Okay, great, let's go. This is amazing. When you were up there, you weren't speaking, so it was all telepathy essentially, right? And one thing I've heard in so many different instances, not just from near-death experiences, but also from mystics, yogis, and similar sources, is that there's a kind of understanding where you just know what's going on without anyone having to tell you. It's like being, they call it touched by the cloud. No pun intended, you kind of entered the circus. You just have all the information at all times, and when something appears in front of you, you simply think, oh, that's Uncle Bob, and Bob is here to help me get through this, or something like that. Was it like that? Definitely everything was an innate knowing, because I'm not smart enough to piece all of that together. So it was definitely an instinctive understanding. At that moment, my brain capacity was very limited, so it was all a deeply innate knowledge, and there was no need to question anything. That was another part of it. It was as if I knew those I knew. The beings of light were in charge. I didn't have to question why or who or how or anything like that. Those were all things I completely accepted out there. So basically, this was your council. Yes, it seems that way, from what I'm describing, like your council of light. They are your elders, the council of elders. Yes, they're the ones kind of your spiritual guides who guide and help shape your journey to descend and elevate your consciousness, among other things, which isn't easy, of course. So that's who those beings were. Yes, it seems they aren't. They aren't for everyone. They seem to be yours, yes, because they speak to you a lot. It's as if every time you come back. Yes, they were very funny for sure. Did you see any relatives? You just heard relatives. The essence of my father was definitely there with me. And as I said, I felt all the masculine energy. So all the other men in my family who had passed had kind of merged into him. I had a boyfriend who passed away 1 or 2 years before my experience. He was there. So all of this kind of unfolded in this divine masculine energy. It's interesting. So it's not that we have to have these individual beings, but it's the collective speaking through one, right? It's a very divine thing, like when angels, as you know, we'll have channelers. So they're like, we have 20 angels here who will remain unnamed, but we all speak as one, right? Similar, right? Yes, the law of unity is real. We are one. Everything is one. It makes sense. Yes, it makes logical sense to me. Okay, so you went back down and you're like, that was strange. I thought I talked to God. Okay, well, go smell again. Like that was essentially it. Ah, yes, absolutely. Well, the first thing I did was post on Instagram and I was like, guys, I just died. It was wild. I still have the video. It's crazy, amazing. But I thought it was drug-induced psychosis. I had never heard of any of these things before. I had never heard of spiritual awakening. I had never heard of Kundalini and didn't even know how to say that word. For years I had never heard of a near-death experience, so I didn't think any of it was real. In fact, I thought I had just, died and wasn't worthy enough to really cross over. And so, for months after my experience, I just lived recklessly. I mean, I was already living recklessly, but in the 2 months before I even realized it was a real experience, I was completely out of control. Totally, really, yes, I was nuts. Absolutely nuts. And did you ever get close in those 2 months to coming back? No, you weren't that far gone. And I had already overdosed in my life and never had a spiritual experience. This one in particular was it was planned. Well, yes, this was do you believe this was one of your exit strategies for your life? Because from what I understand about your soul plan, or your plan on the highway of life, there are these off-ramps that you set up, like, okay, you'll need a reminder here, and you're going to have a choice. Do you want to go back, or do you want to head to another life? Something like that. Is that what this was? Well, I didn't have a choice, but it was a moment for you. So for me, that's how I understand it. There are 3 things. Pre-birth planning is about the major plot points, right? I didn't plan every bowel movement. I don't know every stranger on the subway count. Thanks for the visuals, but I planned the major plot points. 3 of my main points are dependency recovery and spiritual awakening. Now, I've had many opportunities to set aside the lesson of dependency and move into recovery and spiritual awakening. The first time I went to rehab, I was 18 years old. I could have chosen to stay clean, and then I would have been in recovery, learning that lesson. There was a spiritual awakening as a result of practicing the 12 steps, because that's the promise of the 12th step and the 12-step fellowship, and my life would have looked very different. This was my ultimate timeline. There are no remaining points, all my lessons piled up on each other. Now you're going to experience dependency recovery and spiritual awakening all at once because you kept ignoring the inner GPS that was telling you to turn around and stop moving the car. Yes, it starts with a tap on the shoulder, a whisper. Then it becomes a sledgehammer. Right. Yes, a bucket of spiritual bricks poured over my head. Brutal. This is incredible, all right. So after that, during those 2 months of going crazy, yes, when you finally let go, what was the moment you hit rock bottom? Oh yes, there were several moments. One of the main ones was that the universe was removing people from my life. I had a whole list of dealers, maybe 10 different guys, and I'd call one and say, hey, I want to score. Can I meet you? And he'd say, listen, Lose my number. I found Jesus. I want to be a good dad. I'm out of the game. Click. Blocked. I'm like, okay, this is strange. I called the next guy on the list. The exact same story about Jesus, but these guys didn't know each other. I'm like, where is Jesus hiding? How are all these men finding Jesus? What's going on? I'm talking about calling 10 different people, each one telling me to lose their number and blocking me. And now I'm desperate because I have a physical dependency on opiates and I need to get what I need, or I'm going to get violently ill. So I'm running around New York City. Obviously there are places to buy substances everywhere and I'm doing what I have to do, but I'm on the other. Yes, I got it, yes. Layman, yes. So he has this big blue necklace. I heard a voice in my head saying, this is your path. Follow it to a meeting. So I asked this strange man on the train when there was no one else around, are you going to a meeting by any chance? And he said, yes, I am. Do you want to come with me? And that was the beginning of my recovery journey. I went with this stranger. I followed him to a meeting and they told me I had to keep going to meetings every day, that this would be my new routine. Instead of using every day, I was going to meetings every day. The next day I went to another meeting and I didn't stop. You see, at that time I was missing most of my teeth. So thankful for the spiritual awakening. Let me get some teeth in my life. I, 92944, was super skinny. My skin was grey, my eyes were dead. I had these huge sores all over my face and arms because I was constantly high, and I thought bugs were living inside me. So, I cut myself with razor blades and burned myself with lighters trying to get the bugs out. Then, I went into this meeting. It was a women's meeting, and I looked terrible. It was painfully obvious that I was new. This woman grabbed me as soon as I walked in. She held me so tightly and I hadn't been hugged in a loving way for a long time, so I felt very uncomfortable. Then she leaned in and whispered in my ear, you are worthy of all the love in the universe. You are worthy of all the love in the universe. Oh my God, that was my deepest moment of surrender. That was it. I melted into that woman. I let out a very ugly, deep, mournful scream. I rested my head on her chest for as long as she would let me, and I really surrendered. I didn't feel worthy of all the love in the universe, but I had a shred of hope. Maybe I'm worth more than what's happening in my life right now. So the next day I went to another meeting. It was a big one. There were 80 people there, and I swear to God it was like the Truman Show, as if everyone was sharing directly with me. They weren't. They didn't even know I was there. But it felt like every sharing was a message from God just for me. And then I realized there was a woman there. She was the director of the long-term rehabilitation program, a women's facility. And so throughout the meeting, my inner voice kept saying, you should ask her for help. You have to ask her for help. But my ego was chiming in, saying things like, no, that's not who you are. You can't ask people for help. Just forget it. So I was having this internal struggle between my spirit and my ego. Finally, I mustered the courage. The meeting ended and I walked over to where that woman had been. I thought, I'm going to live a new life and she's going to help me do it. I know it. I approached her, but to my surprise, she was gone. She had left early and I felt totally defeated and empty. With my head down, I headed to the bus to go home. When I got on the bus, that woman was sitting there. Oh my goodness. She had left the meeting early and somehow was on the same bus as me. I rushed over to her completely frantic and said, oh my God, I think you're an angel. You're sent from heaven. You're here on earth just to help me. I can't believe this. I wanted to talk to you at the meeting, but of course I couldn't because you weren't there. This is insane. I can't believe it. Oh my God, are you going to help me? Please, I think you should help me. Wow, coming in strong. Ah, yes, coming in strong. You are. She looked at me so calmly, as if she had been waiting for me her whole life. And she said, yes, we can help you. We have a bed available starting tomorrow. And that sentence changed my entire life. I went there the next day with nothing but the clothes on my back. I had nothing to bring. My only valuable possession was a $200 vibrator. I didn't have much going for me. I figured if I could leave that behind, I could do anything. And so I did. I left it behind and began my spiritual journey. How do you bring those things along on a spiritual journey? It's counterproductive. Yes, exactly. And I entered the women's facility, and that's when my healing started. I didn't know what happened to me, and it was a long-term program. I was there for 17 months. Wow, yes. And despite what some men might think, a women's drug rehab isn't about sexy pajama parties and pillow fights. It's brutal. Okay? It was hardcore, really hardcore. Oh God, yes. I had to face all my traumas reflected back at me and see all my character flaws and how I behaved in relationships with others. I learned a lot, especially since I didn't have access to a cell phone or the internet during that time. So, I had to learn from books. It felt so outdated. I was like, I know. Have you heard of books? Ridiculous, right? We'd go to the library once a week and I would rush straight to the religion and spirituality section. I had this insatiable thirst for knowledge. Before my experience, my brain capacity felt very limited. The only vocabulary I had was a long list of drugs I'd used and how much money it cost to be with me. There was no room in my mind for anything else because I didn't need room for anything else. But now, my awareness opened up, and I wanted to fill it with spirituality. I wanted to discover the meaning of life. Tell me everything about quantum mechanics. Let me learn. So I started grabbing all these books from that tiny section in the library. Then one day, I walked in and saw a book that seemed to be glowing. I could spot it from a distance. It looked like it was about to fall off the shelf, and all I could read on the spine was the word, miracles. And I thought, miracles. I love miracles. I am a miracle. I got a little closer and saw the book was called A Course in Miracles, with Alan Cohen facilitating it. I know. Oh yes, sweet man. I devoured that book. I honestly would have physically eaten it if I could. I couldn't stop. I didn't really understand who the author of A Course in Miracles was at the time. So I kept going back to the library asking the librarian for help. She was like, "Girl, this book doesn't exist. Please stop, we can't. You can't check it out here." And I was like, I need this. I need this book. Then I started reading a bunch of books about A Course in Miracles. And then one day when I was heading back to the facility, the clinician, the director, was checking my bag, like, for contraband. When you come back, they check your bag. And she saw that I had 5 books on A Course in Miracles in my bag. And she said, "Oh, you know, I have a copy of the course that I brought in the 70s. I never really understood it. It's been sitting on my shelf all these years. Do you want to borrow it?" And I was like, yes, I absolutely do. So while I was in treatment for 17 months, I read A Course in Miracles and also devoured every other spiritual text I could get my hands on. I built my spirituality around this beautiful spiritual principle. I had to pick the things I liked from each teaching and develop my own sense of spirituality, kind of like a spiritual cafeteria. Oh yes, it was a little smorgasbord of selections. You mentioned something that really caught my attention, your ego. This isn't often talked about in near-death experiences, the ego especially, since your story is so intense. Usually people say something like, "You know, I was on the wrong path, then I died, and then I met a good God, and I changed." Yours was much more intense. The gap is much bigger than just the ego you built up over 35 years of that. It's who I am. And after you started helping homeless people that came from the ego too, by the way, it was like, yes, oh, we're Jesus now. I can get behind this. Let's do it. How did you deal with that internal struggle, that inner conflict? Because your ego seemed like it was a powerful presence after 35 years of dependency and all the traumas you faced, which exist to protect you. It's there to act because it's all it knows. Your ego is always there to protect you. Sometimes it can get a bit excessive, but generally it's built to do that. Built. How did you overcome that to become who you are today? Yeah, you know, ego is kinda a buzzword, right? I also studied Jungian philosophy, and Jung talks about different stages we go through when we come into this world. There was a stage of masks, like in my early childhood and adolescence. Then came my shadow. My shadow really took control, especially after my parents died. That was a part of me. So like my shadow, my ego, those words are pretty much interchangeable, represent something that's not my spirit, right? Something that's not my higher self. Then there's the other side of this involving the anima and animus the divine feminine and divine masculine in Jung's philosophy. And then, coming back around to the higher self, with a capital S. For me, my shadow was my dominant personality throughout my life. It's not like my shadow vanished after some spiritual experience. My shadow is my main protector. It's all I've ever known. So I have to learn to give it a new role, a new purpose, because it's not going anywhere. It exists within me, and I'm not someone who can just erase it, so I have to learn how to assign it a new role. Many things come from my shadow. One major aspect of it for me is my addiction. What I like to do is create characters based on parts of my shadow. My addiction has its own name, form, and face. He's a man, a gay man. His name is Richard. He thinks he's so fun and fabulous, but really he's a mess. Richard lives in a glass house inside my mind. He sticks his face up to the panes and shouts, "Let's have a drink, let's have fun." And I'm like, "No, Richard, we don't drink anymore." So I have to bring in my higher self to offer him compassion because, again, I can't destroy him. If I ignore him, he just gets louder and louder. I do a lot of work compartmentalizing myself so I can recognize which part is trying to communicate, which part is trying to protect me, and why it feels the need to protect me. You know, even my addiction morphed into other addictions, right? I put substances aside and then all my eating disorders surfaced. Then I start getting those eating disorders under control, and then there's the addiction to pornography and masturbation, then the codependency, then the obsession with limerence, which is my favorite kind of love, getting obsessed over people who don't even know I exist. And so there's all this variety of things happening. My inner saboteur, my inner controller, my inner critic, and how all of this is playing out in my world. And my spirit wants to experience all of this, because without that contrast, I wouldn't truly appreciate how good it feels to remember who I really am. If I hadn't had my addiction running the show for so many years of my life, how could I appreciate God the way I do today? I mean, maybe I could have, but I wouldn't trade my story for anything. I mean, lots of twists and turns, a lot of trauma, but now everything is centered on triumph. You know, it's like the ability to rise above the human experience. The spirit is so resilient, and I know that if this is accessible to me, it's accessible to everyone. And that's the beautiful thing about your story, Betty, is that, you know, it's an intense story. There's no doubt about it. A Spanish soap opera that's about some heavy stuff, with the writer of the Spanish soap opera making things happen. No question about it. So, you have such a powerful story. And this concept of dignity is so strong because most of us don't believe we are worthy of anything, let alone love, much less success, and even less so, you know, a good partner or anything like that. So I've already seen that this is a common theme. It was, for me, for a long time, and I still struggle with it. You know, I still struggle making this show. I'm like, do I really, I don't know still. The programming is so deeply ingrained, and I didn't experience a huge amount of abuse as a child or anything that would have caused this. But to overcome that in your life, and you are a shining example of that for people who were. And not to say this in a negative way, like, well, she, as you said, if she could do it, you know. I mean, I had a difficult situation, but wow, man, yes, you're not a cautionary tale because it's not a cautionary tale. It's an example of what can happen, what you can become. And don't take that the wrong way, Jesus, please don't strike me down. But the way Jesus was an example for all of us, or any of those ascended masters. They were examples of what we can become. We are all capable of that, but not everyone takes the path you followed. Yes, and it's a shining example of what a soul can achieve in this life. Yes. You know, we need to transform ourselves. I didn't know that. I thought I was supposed to be a caterpillar, a dirty little grub crawling through the mud my whole life. I didn't even know you could become a butterfly. And many times I wonder if it's really about caterpillars. Do they know? Do they know what they're going to become one day? Would they want to know? Should it be a surprise? Because my journey of transformation, my metamorphosis, has been the most exciting thing in my life, and it continues. Yes, it continues. I am not finished. I'm always evolving, and I have setbacks. I'm not saying this as if I'm perfect. I haven't used substances again, thank God. But as I said, I have other behaviors, and I'm not trying to pretend that I'm perfect. You know, I'm just trying to be. I'm not trying to be better than anyone else. I'm just trying to be better than who I used to be. And every day I have the chance to do that. That's very, very powerful. After all that experience, well, let me ask you, did it make you? Because many people who have near-death experiences come back with some sort of abilities or powers. And obviously you believed that for a moment there in the subway. But did anything else during this awakening open up other things? You know, I'm not saying you see dead people, but is there anything else you had to deal with? Yes. So when I had the awakening, I developed this ability. The ability to see people's energy, especially when they were lying. Like aura. I would see these spirals coming out of people's ears when they were lying. That's very practical. Oh yes, super useful, right? Except I was going up to strangers on the street and being like, your husband is lying to you, he's gay, you should divorce him and take your baby. Like, not a great way to start a conversation, right? Please stop doing that. And after that I started to understand that I had to learn the art of bibliomancy, which is when you open a book to a random page, and it seems like it's speaking directly to you, because it is. There's a word for that, yes. So, I went to Walgreens after my experience and stole a Bible because I wanted to learn about God, and I was a thief. I probably could have just gone to a church and asked. Pause for a second. I want everyone to understand this situation. I wanted to learn about God, so I decided to take a Bible, a book that's freely available in every hotel. You can just walk into a church and ask for a Bible and they'll give you one, no problem. Sure, you're still in the same place, but your intentions are good. But I couldn't afford a Bible, right? So maybe that's why I took one. It was so strange because there was a display of Bibles at Walgreens. I haven't seen that since. In fact, I'd never seen that before. What state was this? New York? Having a Bible display in a Walgreens? In New York, that doesn't happen. It was just sitting there, practically inviting me to take one, obviously. So I opened the Bible to a random page, and the verse I landed on was, "Why worry about the speck in your brother's eye when there is a plank in your own?" Here I was, trying to help homeless addicts, when I realized I needed to take care of myself first. I had to heal some things inside me. That part really stood out. Another verse that stayed with me was something like, I won't be able to quote it exactly, but it talked about birds that don't worry, no fears about shelter, food or clothing. God takes care of you. At the time I didn't believe it, but I kept flipping back to that page thinking, maybe. Then I found myself in this long-term rehab, where I was fed, clothed and given shelter. I just had a place to learn. No worries about rent, bills, work or anything else. I simply had the space to sit and learn, and that's how I used that time. Those were the gifts I brought back with me. I also had a bit of synesthesia, where all my senses were mixed together. I could taste music, see people's energy. It was all pretty overwhelming. But I asked for it to be taken away because I was like, this is crazy, this is nuts. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't go from 0 to infinity. I needed something in between. How do you be human? I mean, I didn't want to know about things you can't touch like that. I really didn't need that in my life. Right. Now, it's interesting that you say you don't want any of this because you already have enough on your plate, not to mention dealing with the pressure of these abilities. And I know many psychic mediums and others have just held on to this because it can be overwhelming. It really is a lot. And today, my gifts show up in different ways. For example, I'm a master manifester. Hello, I manifested this experience and I use the law of attraction in my healing practice, and I can do the same with the people I work with. I teach the law of attraction in a really easy to understand way. Honestly, just like a homeless addict could do this, you probably can too. And another one of my gifts is bringing people together in the community. Oh my God, I love that. Being able to guide people to communities where they can heal, feel accepted, or integrate and grow through the experience. So that's how my spiritual gifts show up today. All the things you went through in those first 35 years, in my own life I mean, all the stuff I went through in my life and in the film industry and all that, I only recently realized it was preparing me for what I'm doing now. I was really angry about it when I was going through it just like you were, but it prepared me for everything I'm doing now. Obviously, your experiences prepared you for what you're doing too. But there's something specific, any skills, like you just mentioned about community, how it was for you. Was there a moment during those 35 years? I love gatherings. Let's get some people together, just like staff. You are the most fascinating near-death experience I've ever encountered. I have to tell you, at least the most fun. This has been one hell of a story, and definitely a full circle. I feel like I lived through all of that. When I'm happy, I'm really glad it happened. But was there anything you brought from before, like skills? Like an addict, I could do this, that, and the other thing. And now it's really helping me in this part of my life. I probably never said this on a podcast before, but honestly, being involved in sex work really helped me understand human nature a lot. I mean, it really does. People are hurt and wounded and just want someone to talk to. It was like, much less. I mean, I was a hot mess, so it wasn't even about that, It was just that people want someone to trust, someone to confide in. And that really motivated me to help people on their healing journeys. Today, I work with people as a transformation coach, and it's really about holding space, and that's all people need. They just need a little inspiration and understanding, just compassion, But beyond that, really the driving force behind my backstory is that I dealt with loss, the intentional loss of my parents. I managed to help people through similar losses. I was immersed in my own addiction. All of my work today is in outreach. I don't just work as a transformation coach. I have a daytime job too, and work in the field of substance use and recovery disorders. So, I split my time. And no, I don't share all of this as if they didn't know I had a near-death experience or anything like that. But I say, hey, I got through this, and if I can do it, you can too. And that's the job for which they pay me a salary. How crazy is that? You are the bird, right? You are the bird. Everything is taken care of. Yes, everything. It all just fell into place. Everything is coming together. When did you have your whole awakening? During those 17 months when you came back, I always ask, what do you know? Did you come out of the closet? When did you decide to start talking about it? When did you start to talk about it? Was there any apprehension about it? Because it doesn't seem like you had a group of friends you were clinging to, or even family or anything like that you would have felt embarrassed talking about a near-death experience at that moment. It seems that, in this narrative, it doesn't feel out of place. Yes? So was there a moment when you came out of that closet and started speaking publicly at shows and in everything you were doing? So, well, I shared about it on Instagram. The next day I was like, how did you do it? But after that, when I started to share the full story that unfolded over years of integration, the first time I spoke about it was through IONS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, where I actually work part-time today. I know I had this whole invisible support system around me. I was constantly channeling the archangels, and I had all my spirit guides. My dad is my number one guide. He's always with me. I had created an entire team, but none of them were real physical people. And I begged them when I left treatment. I said, please, you have to manifest in physical beings for me, because I can't live my life talking to thin air. I need physical interaction. I'm here as a human being. And I found all these wonderful spiritual communities. I have a course in the Community of Miracles. I study the Baha'i faith. I belong to a 12-step fellowship. But I was missing that part about this spiritual experience, which I honestly still didn't truly understand. And I was watching Netflix, and the series Surviving Death came on. The first episodes were about near-death experiences, and I heard Dr. Mary Neal share her story. I was shocked and couldn't believe it. I said, oh my God, that's what happened to me. And they were at an IONS conference in the episode. So I Googled and found that there were online sharing groups. I joined these groups and listened to people talk. They had all this language and were openly sharing their stories. And I thought, could this be me? Will I ever be able to share this story and make sense of it? Then, the people were saying they had their experiences 20 years ago, and I'd walk away silently thinking, you're still not back in heaven. Wait, you're saying I have to stay here for another 20 years? Because I thought it was all about going back to heaven. So every time I hit a milestone, I would cry out to God, hey God, I haven't used drugs for a year. Are you still coming back to get me? Is the spaceship arriving? What's happening? I'm still here. And through that community, I realized it's not about going back to heaven. It's about bringing heaven here. And so every day, I have the opportunity to do that in connection with others who feel like heaven to me. Do you fear death more? Definitely not. I won't say I'm welcoming it, but whenever I'm ready, like I always say, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no, yes, I know. I'm really enjoying my life on earth right now. Experience today because I came out the other side of this. Yes, this is the fun part. Yes, as I said, just as I said, like I said, I didn't trust them. But now, I would even come back to earth. Most experiencers say they would never come back here, but at this point in my life, I'm really enjoying it. I would definitely come back here again. I want to dive into that just for a second, then I wouldn't want to come back here. That's the definition. And I know many people listening right now like definitely are not coming back here because they've been through this, and this. I hope that this story sheds some light on the experience itself, and you know if she went through all of that, which is extreme. But on the other side, as a soul, when you saw pre-birth, the pre-parent experience, and you went to the spiritual supermarket, doing grocery scans, such a generation loving their grocery scans, and you're pulling boxes of cereal full of experiences, there seems to be a sense of vertigo on the other side, like, oh my God, I'm going on a ride. It's like, right before you get on at Disney World, like you've never been on Space Mountain, or you've never been, on Tron or something like that. So you're about to continue, and there's this anticipation, like, can't wait to see what happens on this ride. Which, from the perspective of the souls, makes total sense. But from this perspective, you're like, why would I want to go through what you went through? Yes, like, why would I want to do that? So you can explain to people the feeling that it's a gift to come here and have the experience of contrast. That's the big thing. It's the experience of contrast. Because some people, everyone, nobody leaves here without scars, some shrapnel. Every human being, because we arrive, it's just the nature of this reality. You're going to have a tough fight, generally speaking, yes. Even if you're born into a billionaire family and all, you'll still have some things to deal with. Something, yes, no matter what. You might be a billionaire in a suit with a nice car, but you'll still be dealing with some crap. Yes. So you can explain to people why you would or wouldn't do something once, potentially thousands of times. We're just talking about Earth. Let's not even discuss the rest of this universe, which is pretty big, and other experiences that aren't from Earth. But I hear this is one of the hardest. Yes, so heaven is boring, okay? It's a snooze fest. There's just one thing happening. Love. It's unconditional love, which is nice, I guess. But how can you appreciate love unless you understand suffering? Unless you grasp duality? So I honestly think we're all completely tired up there in paradise. We are God the Father whatever. Like I'm so over it. Like you're a valley girl from the city. That's how I see myself, and I like nails. As if God, my heavenly Father, is so annoying, he's like, all my place with your love, yuck. Let me go to Earth and see what's happening down there. I heard that place is a trash fire. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Oh, New York, that sounds fun. Let me tell you, living in New York is the most incredible part of my human experience because I can experience a wide range of things on one block of the city. I can see a homeless person defecating, a millionaire stepping out of a Porsche, a family pushing their new baby in a stroller, all on the same block. It's amazing while I'm having some great Chinese food. It is, yes, it's crazy. And for me, it really helps to keep in mind that I'm in a dream and that everyone has autonomy within the flow. And that's where the pre-birth, the planning, really comes into play for me. Maybe I want to go out and fix, manage, control, and correct the outcome for everything happening, but I don't know what that is. The soul's plan is. Maybe it's their plan to be in that place right now. Perhaps they aren't meant for transformation right now. It's not up to me to decide. I'm not the one who makes those choices. This isn't my dream. It's the collective dream we're all experiencing. So, I believe that when it comes to processing all the grief, it should be fun. It's meant to be fun. Now, when challenges come my way, I kind of laugh with my team and say, haven't I learned enough lessons? Can't I just have this super easy part of the game now? I don't want to learn anything difficult anymore. And they say, no, you still have some leftover stuff, yes. Otherwise, why would you be here, right? But it's interesting that just like in your life, the first part was extremely hard. And this now is the next chapter. You know, it's a dream. It's been worked on. You've put in the effort to get here, but now it's a dream. It is. And you know what? For everyone. Just sharing this success is really uncomfortable for me, and my inner saboteur kicks in to protect me. And you know it came up like the sugar addiction I haven't had since I stopped eating sugar a year and a half ago. Go figure, right? But that was my way to sedate myself through the success of this journey, like finding a wonderful partner, building a speaking career, connecting with the conscious community, all my dreams coming true. My inner world is like, no girl, like failure, rejection. We know those. It's as if when we're cozy with success, joy, happiness, it feels unfamiliar. All this is really uncomfortable and strange. And you know we grow through the discomfort of life. So for me, reaching this point in my life isn't like, yes, everything is amazing. It's more like I still have a lot of patterns that are, in the process of being reprogrammed. I have to stay really vigilant with my spiritual practices to stay grounded while all this is happening. Because it seems like you can easily sabotage yourself, and you probably have. Oh, I absolutely have, yes, when success started coming, yes, absolutely. That's why so many people who win the lottery can't handle it. Yes, if they've never experienced that kind of energy before. For me, it was 0 to 100. What? There was no slow, gradual transition into this. It was like sleeping while being violently awake, like blaring alarms, buckets of ice, water being thrown on your head. It was overwhelming. So, there was no room for me to pretend that success or what joy looks like was easier. Can you? Can you speak to those watching now who are losing someone or about to lose someone to old age illness or something like that, or have lost someone and maybe have turned to atheism, or don't have a strong belief, or just think, I just want to make sure Grandma, Nana is okay. That kind of thing. Because if people find, and you know this, when they look for this kind of show, this kind of episode, it's because they're searching for answers. They want to know their loved ones are okay. So this is a message for them, but also for people who may be going through the dying process right now and are worried like, did I forget something you said? Afraid of what it might be like on the other side. What do you think? What would your message be? Yes, well, maybe I'll take back my statement that my heaven is boring and super cool. It really is very cool. But I mean, for how long? Where can I find good Chinese food there, right? I mean, heaven is beautiful. The sense of reunion, that's what it was. I felt in the light, not at home, like, where are all your things? There are no words to describe that feeling of reunion, happiness, joy, connection, and security. How incredibly safe. It's a beautiful place, and I believe we all go there. As if there were no condemnation. If I went there, everyone is getting there. But I also don't think it's an escape from the earth experience. You're here to learn things, and if you don't learn your lessons, I believe you come back and need to face those lessons you still have to learn. So, I think there's a lot in it, a lot of hope. There definitely is life after life. I absolutely know that with 100% certainty. But Earth is really amazing too. I think I've hosted a podcast for years, and many listeners might be thinking about leaving Earth at their own time. And this isn't, again, I don't believe in condemnation, but I also don't believe you can go to college and not get your diploma. No, you come back. Ah, yes, you have to finish. You signed up for this. You can't quit now. You have to see it through. You enrolled in the doctoral program. When I first became spiritually aware, I heard people say that Earth is the most advanced place, a league of all the spiritual schools. And I thought, is it really? Or is it just a place for troubled kids and pregnant teenagers? Because honestly, maybe I'm in the wrong school. Well, if you look at social media, definitely, no question about it. But anyway, keep going. I just want to say there is still a lot of hope. So if you're preparing to cross over or have recently lost someone, take care of yourself. You can still access them. Like I said, my dad is my #1 spirit guide. He's always with me, and I just have this deep knowing, and it's not just me. We all can connect with our loved ones and ask for a sign. I wasn't sure if I was losing my mind or actually experiencing something spiritual. I felt my dad so close, and I said, Dad, listen, I think I'm losing it. If it's really you, send me a sign. The first image that popped into my head was a fox, so I said, "Okay, Dad, send me a fox if it's really you." The next day I went to TJ Maxx. You know that store. It looked like a bomb had gone off. Ross and Marshall's too, forks in the underwear aisle, shoes everywhere. It was completely chaotic. Your eyes couldn't focus on anything because so much was happening, right? And there I was holding a bunch of stuff I didn't need, about to check out, standing near the final clearance rack. There was a book titled Incredible Parents, with a picture of a daddy fox and a baby fox, and I just knew it was him. That was the sign I needed. So I'd say, if you've recently lost someone, ask for a sign. I'm excited to hear your story about how that sign shows up, because it definitely will. When you were telling that story and reached the end, I thought, is that a display of Bibles? Did you steal another one? No? Funny. So, let me ask. I'll ask you some questions that I ask all my guests. What does living a fulfilled life mean to you? Living a fulfilled life is all about experiences. It includes everything, the good, the bad, and the indifferent moments. I want to experience everything that brings me joy and to be of service to others. Oh my God, I'm now addicted to serving. It's my new favorite thing. It feels great to do it. Yes, to some extent you can't overdo it. Balance is key. There has to be equilibrium in everything. But yes, service is such a powerful thing, and many people don't realize it. So many who don't offer service are missing out on the simple act of kindness. It's the greatest high, in my opinion. Whatever you believe it is, there's a chemical released in your body when you're kind. I think it's part of our evolution as a species, because the only way we survive is by being collaborative, by being helpful. Otherwise, those bears are way stronger than us. I say this all the time. They are much stronger than us, and we're actually quite fragile. We're beautiful, you know, but we weren't really built for this planet. That's so true. So what keeps us going is helping each other. Yes, and service doesn't have to be a grand gesture like donating thousands of dollars to a cause. It can simply be holding the door open for a stranger, giving someone a compliment, or accepting a compliment. That's also an act of service, and it can be very challenging. Yes, if you had the chance to go back in time, even with the DeLorean and Marty, to talk to little Betty, what advice would you give her? Oh, I would tell her to hold on tight to life, dear. To that dear little girl, it's going to get really tough, and then it's going to be amazing. You are worthy of all the love in the universe. That's what I would say to her. That's another t-shirt that's way too big. How do you define God or the source? There's no single definition for God. You know, the source is everything. It's like a form of energy, and I feel connected to that energy source. That's my idea of God, unconditional love. It's safety, security, all those incredible feelings of peace and calm. That's how I see God. So when I pray, I'm directing my prayers to those qualities. And God isn't a shape, gender, race, or class, in my view. It's just this effervescent ball of unconditional love that I'm unleashed from. What is love? Oh, love is so indescribable, right? Love is, you know, here on earth. Obviously, how we romanticize the idea of love. We think of a romantic partner or even a child-parent relationship. There are these special bonds. Of course, in miracles, I would call it that. But a sacred relationship is where love can truly thrive and be experienced, because it's love without conditions. My whole life I thought love was transactional, that I had to do something to be worthy of love, whether it was getting good grades, cleaning my room, being a good spouse, or whatever that looked like. Today, I have this concept of unconditional love, which means without conditions, and that it's accessible to me again. The feeling of safety, connection, all these things capture the idea of love for me. If you could ask God one question, what would it be? Do you like my hair? No, I'm not going to bother God with any of that. He'd be like, I heard what you said. Oh my God, my father question. Yes, my father giving me so much love. Oh, that's it. Like annoying my kids. They do the same thing just like my wife and I do. Literally, we say to them, sorry, we love you so much. Yes, you know, when we drop them off at school, we roll down the window and say, we love you. They just want to die, and it's the best feeling. Yes, we are all like these nihilistic teenagers here on earth. Yes, we are so emo. Listen, a lot of confrontation. And what's the ultimate purpose of life? To experience, to try everything life has to offer. That means experience heartache, experience grief, experience love, experience connection, Experience everything that life really means. We come here to forget so we can remember, because it's in the remembering that. I mean, that's happiness, remembering. You might think that as humans it's ridiculous, crazy, and as you said, experience everything. The first thing that came up, my hand was like, but everything everywhere at once. That's exactly how your story goes. You just, all the cereal boxes were from behind. Where can people find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing in the world? Yes, I'm on all social media. My handle everywhere is Buddha Betty. It's a play on words. I'm actually not a Buddha. In fact, I'm not a Buddha. You were Jesus. We've established that. I'm more like a body, but my handle is Buddha Betty. I have a website, buddhabetty.com, and I would love to connect with anyone, especially if you're someone dealing with addiction or integrating a spiritual experience. I would love to connect you with the community or work with you one-on-one. There is so much hope out there. There is so much freedom. There are so many resources. So please, please reach out. And this is just one last question. I wanted to ask you, with this awakening, the Great Awakening, the program you were just talking about, many people are going through a lot right now, and you kind of hinted at that with your last comment. What advice do you give to people dealing with their own awakenings, their own dark night of the soul, their own shadow work, which seems like everyone is starting to face? You know, the things we didn't talk about as kids, we're dealing with now, and it's reaching a mass level. I think that's one of the reasons it feels like everything is a dumpster fire right now. It seems like the whole world is crumbling around us because of it. So I would love to hear your advice for anyone. Yes, don't watch the news. That's my number one piece of advice. You don't need to. But how will I stay informed? You don't need to. If it's important enough, it will come to you. Yes, you will find out. You know, I think being present is so important. My awareness of the Great Awakening has shifted. I'm aware each day that great things are coming. They are just around the corner, like the transformation is here. Everything is about to happen. But I realized that with every second I was caught up in this story, I was pulling myself out of the present moment. So whether you believe in the Day of Judgment and the Apocalypse, or in the Great Awakening and transformation of consciousness, both of these really take you away from the present moment, which is where heaven truly is. Another aspect of going through a spiritual awakening and integration is facing all those shadows from our past. Don't do this alone. As you said, the bears are big. We came here in tribes of souls, not just tribes of souls, but since the beginning of time, we have been in tribes of people. We need to connect, find a teacher, find a community, find a mentor, find someone to do this work with. If I'm doing my work alone, I'm in bad company. I'm the one who got myself into the slump in the first place. It's as if I'm not truly myself. I have to find someone else to support me. Betty, this has been without a doubt one of the most incredible near-death experiences I've ever had. I had to be careful not to have too much fun with you. You're just a wonderful ball of energy, and I appreciate your sincerity and your humor about the whole experience. Hopefully, those listening will be inspired to help others. So I thank you for everything you're doing to awaken this planet. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.